Welcome to Self Care You podcast. I'm your host, Sharon, the number one self caregiver in the world. This podcast is the intersection of self care, advocacy, and compassion for the self caregivers. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And so, for this episode, what we will talk about is emotional barriers. And a lot of times when we think about that, sometimes you may think emotional barriers come from other people, even though it can be created, I would say, like when it comes from abuse, neglect, any trauma associated with that, assault, but also what may not derive from that emotional barriers that you and even I may create for ourselves. And so, in saying that, again, when it comes to self care, it is about the luxury of feeling good, but it's more so of getting through life or allowing you to live life. Um, Even though life can be wonderful, but there are just daily stresses that come, within life. And so it gives you the opportunity to study yourself, to learn yourself, so you can be yourself, for yourself, and through yourself. So that when things that kind of call it, we say that is life. And when I say that, meanings where you had no dealings with it, but most of the time we do, or at least sometimes we do, not always. In that, in saying all of that, in saying that when it comes to life, that sometimes some of our, and when I say emotional barriers, meaning things that get in the way, sometimes it can be how we feel about something, how we see about something has to do with how you feel about it, how you perceive it. And it creates emotional barriers because you're not able to move forward to recover from certain things. And then sometimes, especially if an event happened that involves other people, you may think it's that person in front of you or who was a part of that. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes they're the messenger to give you, me, what we need in order to move past, in order to develop it's not really a skill, but to develop things within ourselves so that we don't take things to heart, so that you can enjoy life and do the things that needs to be done. Um, Again, with the emotional barrier, it can really allow you to be stuck in stagnant and not move forward in life. And while you may be blaming someone, but you played an active role in it, and it can be active even on a subconscious level. And I say that from experience. I really am. I say that from a experience that I had, and I'm like, what in the world is this? Um, and so in saying that, this is why self-care is so important. And like once you recognize certain aspects of yourself, and you may have heard me say this before, in that if you are saying something to someone, asking something of someone by 3 times, it's not that it is you. It is and it's not. But it's also saying what movement, action, or behavior, and even when it comes to your mentality, needs to be changed. How do you need to move different? How do you need to think about this, whatever that thing is? Because it can really allow you to be stuck and not move on, so that you can really be where you want to be in life, where you won't be blaming other people, where you won't be stuck. And if you need to remove yourself or remove someone else out of your life, because sometimes that needs to be done, not always, but sometimes it does, so that you can have a discernment whether or not if people, places, or things are in alignment with you, with your mission, with your purpose, not quite with your passion, because I kind of look at that a little different. And so, with emotional barriers, again, sometimes it can be where you are creating them yourself, especially if you are avoiding. And I can say this for myself because of the fact, like, for the most part, most of my life, I have been, it's like the energetic, emotional person. I'm going to say it like that. The energetic, emotional person, always given, always seeing the best in other people, very positive. But one thing that I can say, what I've come to realize, is that at an early age, I don't know, sixth or eighth grade, could have been both of those moments. But I do remember there was a moment in my life that I can remember, ooh, what is this? I don't like feeling like this, and move past it. Whatever that was, it was some uncomfortable feeling. And again, and for people who have children, I've heard people say, oh, I do this so they would not have to suffer. I do this so that they won't have to feel this way, because you remember how you felt. But the missing piece of it, it's not completely removing certain things. Some things may be, but it's more so in teaching. Like, you don't just give people money, you teach them how to make it, and more so how to keep it. um and there's so many different scenarios, but I distinctly remember not wanting to feel a certain way. I can even remember, I can't remember what it was, but I remember I was in the fourth grade, fourth or fifth grade, I asked my mama for something, and she said no. And I'm like, why? I've been a good girl. She's like, oh, just because you're good don't mean you're going to always get your way, which that is true. She was trying to teach me that. But what I've come to realize, okay, you can say that to someone, but how do you really teach a person that? How do you move a person through that process? Because to me, just, it's almost kind of like just by telling someone something, but you're not real in. Granted, I feel like I had the most wonderful mom, in the world. She did the best that she could in that particular time, with our parents who were born, in the 40s. They didn't have that skill themselves, because pretty much they were all for themselves as well. You know what I mean? And so, but my thing is that we have, especially for those of you, it's like, I want to be better. I want to do better. I want to be there for others. I want to help others learn, in the sense that of teaching, um, at least in helping people process it. Because that's the thing, is that I've come to realize, even as a mental health therapist, oh, did I really process my feelings, my emotions? Again, when I have come to realizations, again, I've explained to you in the past of how I came to be with this self-care use stuff, with this self-care, because there are certain aspects of my life that I've lost myself. And then I've come to realize, oh, I've been avoiding things. And believe me, when you avoid anything, whether it's intentional or not, in that it will implode or explode, or a combination of both. It will come in your face. Like, let's say we were experiencing the same thing over and over again. And even though we think, in our society, it has us to think that when everything's good, everything is good. But it's not so, because when it comes to when you need to use certain skills to be able to have resilience, resilience doesn't always come from just because you went through something. It's the process, you know? And so, in saying that, I've come to realize that when it comes to some emotional barriers that I may have within myself, that sometimes I didn't even realize. Somehow, you hear me say this, I didn't realize that I had this, or this was going on. It's because of avoidance. It's because of not facing it. It's because of wanting to be feeling good. So, how much we like hate to say this, but challenges and struggles, it can be a structure struggle, meaning that it doesn't always have to be where someone hit bottom or associated with, the big T trauma. Because most of the stuff that we're dealing with is with the little t trauma, and then how we're processing it through our body. A lot of times that's where it's coming from. So, in saying all of that, when it comes to the emotional barriers, that it's like, what emotional barriers that you need to overcome? What emotional barriers that you need to work through? Because you're the only one who can do it. The more that you avoid and not wanting to go in a certain area, and for some people may need therapy for this. For some people may benefit from a life coach or a clergy or a friend, but at the end of the day, it's for you to work on these things and through these things for yourself. And so, when it comes to sometimes the emotional baggage that we may have or endure, some of it comes from because you have created a sense of avoidance and not in working on these things. And this is where self-care come into play, so that you can have the self-awareness and the capacity to be able to work through or have a process of really living despite of things of not being in alignment. Because every person, people, place, and their thing is not going to be in alignment with you, and that's okay. But to be able to be okay with that, don't take it personal. Move on. As I say, people, places, or things are here for a season. A season. So, in saying all of that, it's also to say, remember, 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 you can also go to my website so that you can purchase the ebook, and then upcoming the demonstration workshop of rest, rejuvenate, and recover, because these are things that can help you throughout the day. And when you have those moments of emotional barriers or distress that may come up, these are self care practices that you can do. So make sure that you go to the website of www.affirmholistic with the W network.net, so you can purchase the ebook and the upcoming workshop, which will include the ebook as well. So, oh, excuse me. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Self Care You podcast.